If you lost your mother to death, or if your mother was emotionally absent or narcissistic, then you have missed the nurturing care of a mother. As we'll explore in this podcast, Nurturing Words, Voices of Experience, being a motherless daughter means being part of a club that no one wants to be in. The good news is, while you're unique, you are not alone. What if we told you Motherless Daughters Ministry has 20 years' worth of pearls of wisdom to help you on your mother loss journey? It's true, and we are sharing all of these pearls with you through this very podcast, Nurturing Words, Voices of Experience, sponsored lovingly by Motherless Daughters Ministry. Hello, I'm Gladys Bell, your host for today. In this episode, Voices of Volunteers, we share our third installment in a series highlighting the work of our Motherless Daughters Ministry volunteers. Our ministry is blessed to have an active team of volunteers, and we want to share their stories. Check out episodes 59 and 63 to hear more from our team. Today, we will be listening to the story of Gina Ellis. Let's hear the story of how she learned about Motherless Daughters Ministry and what she's learned as a volunteer.
Well, thank you, Gina, for joining us. I wanted to start by just hearing a little bit more about your story, about how you got involved with Motherless Daughters Ministry and what you do as a volunteer.
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I found Motherless Daughters Ministry in 2017, and I got connected to them as a vendor in another ministry, and Mary Ellen knew I had lost my mother recently, but could tell that there was more to my story, and said, I really think you need to take a class. And she just kept telling me, you really need to take a class. So I looked on the website and started reading through the different classes, and I had never heard of mother loss other than through death. And so I started to be a little bit confused about which class would be most applicable to my life. And Mary Ellen had a phone call with me and started asking me some questions that I had never considered or ever heard of. And that really opened up my eyes to understanding things that I had experienced as mother loss throughout my life that I didn't understand before. And after consulting with Mary Ellen, I took the Daughters of the Narcissistic Mother class, and that was my introduction into the ministry.
That's great. It's so interesting to hear everybody's stories and how they got connected and just finding just what it is that they needed, because you're right. There are many different ways to experience mother loss and finding what works for you. Can you tell us a little bit about the roles that you have as a volunteer with Motherless Daughters Ministry?
Sure. When I first got involved with the ministry, I started writing a few blogs, and then got excited about the podcast. And so I was part of the team who initiated learning about podcasting. And so I volunteer with the team on the podcast. And I took the Journey Retreat as a 12-week course. The Journey Retreat is the flagship course, the original one. And I took that in the fall of 2018. And after that, then I started volunteering when they would host the retreats, the 3.5 day long retreats in person, and just coming alongside the ministry during that time in prayer and in service of preparing for the retreat, preparing for the retreatants, welcoming them, and just doing different things behind the scenes.
I think it's so important to remember all the different opportunities that there are. That's something that's come up in another interview as well. Just a lot of behind the scene things as well, not just the people that you might see or be facilitating, but all of the things that go into it. And prayer is such an important part. I know that's something that you do a really great job of encouragement and prayer for that as well.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. I just feel so grateful to be able to serve in that way. Prayer is so powerful, and this ministry, God continues to bless, and I really feel that God uses the ministry and uses the community of the women to help with healing, and the retreats are truly just an extra passion area for me, the retreats and prayer.
One thing that keeps coming up is a lot of us talking about how, we're trying to volunteer to do things to help others who are going through this journey, but in the process, we end up finding healing or finding something for ourselves. Is there something that you can think of, and maybe it's a whole host of things, but that God has taught you or some healing God has provided you through the volunteering?
Yes, it's really what you continue to hear about grief and healing. It's a journey, it's not a destination. And so I've come to understand that through the ministry. And whether it's blogging or volunteering, hearing other women's stories, it just continues your own healing along that path. You remember you're not alone. You recognize, and you can now heal yourself as well as be a part of the healing for other people. One of the things that helped me the most was getting to a place of forgiveness with my mom. She had passed away, and when she passed away, she had been sick for about a year, and I knew that wasn't the life that she wanted to live in the way that she was living it. That was not the quality of life. And so when she did pass away, I was so relieved for her to be not in that illness anymore, that I just felt such great relief. And I felt like, oh, I've grieved her loss of her nurturing off and on through my whole life. I don't need to be grieving in a sad way. I was just relieved. And through the ministry and through the ways that I was being taught, I came to places of forgiveness in a different way. And it took me a while, but I realized that God wasn't going to let me not grieve and not go through and put up another wall to that grief. And instead, when my heart was ready, was able to then start honoring my mom and some of the unique ways that he created her. And I remember walking up the stairs in my house and just hearing my own voice in my head say, she was magical. And it was just such a huge thing for me to say that, even internally. And I couldn't wait to go and tell my motherless daughters, teachers and sisters. And so being able to have a community of people to continue to share with, grieve with, and rejoice with has been so important.
I think that's a really important part, because I think you can think, well, I need to be more healed to help others, or I need to be this far down the road before I can volunteer or help. But I think one thing, and being around others in this ministry, is just seeing how vulnerable and how we're all still on a journey, and nobody is just going to take a class and then, oh, that's the end of it. We're completely healed. It's like, God continues to work on us, and maybe even things that you think that you've made progress in, maybe it pops back up in a different way. And so I think that vulnerability is important, and also just recognizing that we're all on that journey. And so if someone's listening, oh, I need to be further down this path before I can help others, you can help just where you are. God can use you.
Absolutely.
Where you are.
Yes.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll hear the rest of the story.
You have a powerful story to tell, and I want you to know your story will resonate with so many in our listening community. Podcasts provide us with opportunities to connect with others, fostering a sense of personal connection through the power and intimacy of one's voice. They can provide an escape, a touch point with the world outside, and a sense of community, and not just for the listeners. If you would like to be featured as a nurturing voice of experience in one of our upcoming podcasts, please let us know. Visit motherlessdaughtersministry.com today.
Are there any challenges that you found in volunteering? I know sometimes it could just maybe even be draining having to come to terms with that. It's healing, but it can be hard too. It can be easy to just put it out of your mind. So are there any challenges that you've experienced in volunteering?
I think the challenge sometimes, and I say challenge only because it's how you feel in the moment, not that it's an actual challenge. But when you're volunteering and your heart gets touched, or all of a sudden something is revealed or healed fresh and new, well, you're here to serve other people. That happens in that process. And so to me, the challenge is like, I don't want to leave that moment of what's just been healed or revealed to me, right, but I also need to serve and care for the others, right, which is why it's the ministry and the women who are serving here, because like you just mentioned, that vulnerability, and they recognize that and they allow that to happen even while you're serving. Yeah. So the challenge is really more on my own self of being okay with balancing both, right, that you're processing and continuing your healing even while you're serving, and it's okay. And it's actually beneficial for people who are that you are serving to see that you're being vulnerable, right, and on the journey just alongside them as well, even in your serving role.
Yeah, I think that really helps them to feel safer to be vulnerable as well. So that's great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your experiences, or just if somebody is listening and thinking about wanting to get involved with the ministry and volunteer?
I would say if you're hearing this right now and you're just not certain about what mother loss or this desire for a nurturing voice, that you may feel like, I don't need that. But if there's something in your heart, or there's anything and you're just curious about it, reach out, send that email, pick up the phone, go to the website. There's many, many ways you can reach out and just inquire. We have so many great facilitators and coaches that are willing to talk to you and have an understanding of whether or not this ministry is something that is a next step for you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us here at Motherless Daughters Ministry. If you're in need of more nurturing words, we encourage you to have a listen to other episodes. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you can join us next time.